Here's what's coming up on your horizon. Well, this year's presidential election is unprecedented in so many ways. One of which is how a backlash against free trade is reshaping politics. Donald Trump became his party's nominee in great part with the support of blue-collar men in the South and the Rust Belt, an area of the country that lost lots of manufacturing jobs when it was hit by a surge of imports and competition from China. Free trade has become so controversial that Hillary Clinton, in her quest for the presidency, now opposes an Asian trade deal she herself had helped negotiate. Today, we're going to examine globalization and the impact it has had on American manufacturing and the jobs that are on the line. Stay with us for Oklahoma Horizon.
Oklahoma Horizon is made possible by Career Tech, a job for every Oklahoman and a workforce for every company. With additional support from the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry.
Hello everyone, thanks for joining us here on Horizon. I'm Rob McClendon. Well, by definition, globalization is the free movement of people, goods, and capital. Since World War II, export-led growth has helped hundreds of millions climb out of poverty in the developing world, while also raising the wages of those who work at exporting firms here at home. Yet, thanks to changing economics and the politics that surround it, there's a growing backlash against free trade. And nowhere is that more evident than with those that make a living making things. Manufacturing plays a vital role in Oklahoma's economy, especially when it comes to exports. And that is where we'll begin today by examining the double-edged sword of globalization. Capitalism can be cruel.
Is to move production from our facility in Indianapolis to Monterrey, Mexico.
This video, shot by one of the 1,400 workers, learning that their $23 an hour job is moving to Mexico, where workers there will make $3 an hour. A harsh reality reflected in this year's presidential election.
Mexico makes so much money off of the United States. They do not treat us well.
Inconsistent on so many issues, Donald Trump is clear on one. Unfair foreign competition destroys jobs at home.
We're being decimated by China, by Japan, by every single country that we do business with.
A sentiment that is reflected in the polls of Trump's most ardent supporters. 60% believe globalization lowers domestic wages and costs American jobs.
You know, the working class has really shifted from people who made stuff to people who serve or care for people.
Tamara Drott is the author of the book Sleeping Giant: How the New Working Class Will Transform America. And while not a supporter of Donald Trump, she understands many of his supporters' frustrations.
The wages have really fallen off the cliff. My dad used to make 17, 18 bucks an hour. Today, you know, the new working class, think of it as the Walmart worker making $8, $9 an hour.
Resulting in U.S. household incomes staying relatively stagnant for the past 2 decades. Between 1999 and 2011, America lost 6 million manufacturing jobs. And while conventional economic wisdom suggests these workers will move into other sectors of the economy, a new report argues otherwise. According to analysis from a White House think tank, in the U.S., 1 in 6 working-age men without a college degree is no longer in the workforce, meaning they're neither working nor looking for a job, with 1/3 of these longtime unemployed now living in poverty. Some of the latest numbers I've seen show that we are at the lowest labor participation rate that we've had since I was a kid. Is that a result of the just lower prospects that maybe the working class has?
I think the lower labor force participation rate is happening for a couple reasons. One, we still have the effects of the Great Recession. You know, we still don't have enough jobs for everybody who wants one. And a lot of people just gave up and dropped out, and they're probably not going to come back. That's a huge problem. Going forward, you know, there's a growing concern that more and more jobs are going to be taken by robots. We're already starting to see some of that where the people that check you out at the grocery store, there's fewer and fewer of them as we're all scanning our own groceries at the grocery or at the drugstore, and that technology is going to take more and more jobs. Driverless trucks, driverless cars is another example. So, you know, I think there's a new conversation about the future of work in this country and what we need to do outside of work to ensure that people can live in dignity and have a decent quality of life.
Yet many of the same factors that's led to such upheaval in our economy could actually be the pathway to more stable 21st century jobs. It's called localization, the flip side to globalization. So rather than have large, complex supply chains based on the cheapest labor, a new trend is for companies to create regional product manufacturing hubs. Case in point, ASCO Industries, the large Belgian aerospace manufacturer that in the summer of 2012 announced it was opening a new manufacturing center for the Americas in Stillwater, Oklahoma.
Centrally located, fits really well, and the infrastructure and transportation to be able to get where we need to be is perfect here. I mean, it's in the center of the United States, great highways. Even if you need to ship something by barge, you go to Tulsa and Port of Catoosa and go by water.
In Oklahoma, manufacturing accounts for nearly 10% of total state economic output, employing 8% of Oklahoma's workforce with an average annual compensation well above the state average. Manufacturing also plays a crucial role in our state's exporting economy, resulting in nearly $6 billion in exports of manufactured goods, with the majority going to our free trade partners.
Right now, Canada and Mexico are our two largest markets in the world. Our trade with Mexico, for example, is more than the European Union combined. It's more than all the BRIC countries, Russia, Brazil, India, and China combined. It is a very important part of our economy.
Jim Jones is a retired U.S. Congressman from Oklahoma and a former U.S. Ambassador to Mexico, and says the best way to grow an economy is with exports.
We can't consume everything we need to grow as an economy, so we have to get consumers elsewhere. The way you do that is to become more competitive.
In fact, exporting firms across a variety of industries are more productive, grow faster, and pay higher wages than their non-exporting counterparts.
What people don't really realize is that 95% of the world live outside the United States. That's a lot of customers. There's a lot of market share there that you surely can find someone that's going to want your product or your service.
Chuck Mills is the third-generation president of Mills Machine Company, an international custom manufacturer of earth drilling tools, and says businesses like his make up the lion's share of Oklahoma exports.
Every $1 billion of sales, 5,000 jobs are created. So that's a lot of jobs. So, we want to continue, and we're actually kind of a little shining star in the United States. Our exports grew where other states actually shrank.
Thanks in great part to the trade agreements that have been so widely criticized by both presidential candidates. So while threats of steep tariffs on imports may get the votes, in reality, protectionism hurts consumers and does little to help workers.
Think beyond Oklahoma, think beyond the United States, and think in terms of global economy, because your economic opportunities are going to prosper or decline based upon how well we do in a global economy going forward.
But globalization does have its flaws. While the great majority may benefit, some do lose out. While American manufacturing output has stayed stable for the past 4 decades, thanks to technology, fewer workers are needed to produce those goods. And it's those workers who have lost their jobs where our country often comes up short. The United States spends a paltry 0.1% of our GDP to retrain workers and help them find new jobs. And that's just 1/6 of the average of what other rich countries like ours spends on retraining to ease the transition into a new type of work. Now, a little later in our show, I continue my conversation with retired Congressman and former Ambassador Jim Jones, where we talk about a variety of subjects especially pertinent as we head to the polls. But first, when we return, we visit the last manufacturer of its kind in this country, which is going strong after 100 years.
You're watching Oklahoma Horizon with Rob McClendon. Weekly insight into your changing world.
Well, you can't talk about trade without talking about goods and the manufacturing process that creates them. And while you'll often hear talk of American manufacturing not being what it once was, our Austin Moore introduces us to one Oklahoma manufacturer bucking that trend.
The designs haven't changed too much since Roundhouse Manufacturing began stitching together overalls and jeans in 1903. But demand hasn't waned either.
Business is good. If we can make it, we can sell it.
Jim Antosh is the owner and president of the Shawnee, Oklahoma manufacturing legend, the oldest in the state.
Roundhouse started in 1903 making overalls for the railroad trade. Shawnee had a huge railroad industry, 2 roundhouses that repaired the old steam locomotives here. Rock Island alone employed 1,100 people fixing the trains, and so that's where the name Roundhouse came, because of the repair station.
Though the railroad repair yards have faded into memory, innovation and technology have kept this business on the right track.
Well, the machinery has gotten much better. It's much faster. It does far more different tasks than it used to do. The denim itself has gotten wider, the quality much better over time. The computer age has turned us into much more efficient. We track everything on the floor. We know exactly where it is, where to find it at, what our efficiency is, our costs are, and tracking the sales and averages. We make for in advance predicting, so we can do that much better. So,
all of which makes for a leaner, more profitable business, providing you have the right workforce.
Technology is useless without the people. You put the wrong people on that, and no matter how good it is, you can mess it up. But on the other hand, you put the right people, the technology is, that's where it's at. I mean, we, with the same group, we're probably making 3 times as much product as Roundhouse did in the 1910s or 20s with the same number of people.
Which is why this group of students from Gordon Cooper Technology Center visited the plant floor.
I came today to really just learn and understand and have a more complete knowledge of the manufacturing process.
Cody Moldenhauer is enrolled in Gordon Cooper's Pre-Engineering Academy. These students are preparing for college-level engineering work and the career that follows. Instructor, Paul Schmidlkoffer.
A lot of people don't know what engineers do. I like to say we're like the man behind the curtain in The Wizard of Oz. We're going to open it up and show you everything that's going on in this field. So it's taken a lot of that engineer speak and engineer thought and present it to kids where they'll understand it. So when they get to college, they're not playing catch up right off the bat. And we've heard from our kids that you can tell which ones were in pre-engineering academies and which ones weren't at the colleges. The pre-engineering kids are just as busy, but they're not struggling at the same level that the kids that haven't had all this foundation training.
I love science and math, and I love technology, and I want to help people, and I want to better the world, so that's why I want to be an engineer.
Rachel Hubbard is another Gordon Cooper student considering her looming career choices.
I'm interested in mechanical engineering, so I wanted to come and experience like a likely job I could have, something I could do in the future.
All of this intended to change student perceptions about manufacturing.
We have this perception in this country, particularly our young kids, that manufacturing is dirty, uninteresting environment.
Clarence Prevost is a manufacturing extension agent for Gordon Cooper and the Oklahoma Manufacturing Alliance.
And so by bringing them to a facility like this and letting them know that this, first of all, this is something that affects you every day. This is what your mother, your father does. This is what your grandparents did. And the field of manufacturing grows with technology. As technology grows, manufacturing grows because they both complement one another. So as these pre-engineering students got to see, you can make an effect in the manufacturing field, and those jobs require some sort of training, be it a certificate from Gordon Cooper Technology Center, or whether it's a degree from OU, TU, or OSU. You know, they require some sort of training, and that training is available right here in the state of Oklahoma.
But it isn't just the education that exists here. The opportunity is here too.
Because even in rural Oklahoma, there may be small mom and pop type of manufacturing facilities that we call it, but they're there. They're out there, and to take these students to some of these spots that they pass every day and never get to really see what happens there. But once they go inside and see there's things going on, there are opportunities that are going on in these facilities that cause them to say, hey, there's work going on out there. There are opportunities going on out there. I can make a nice living right here in the state of Oklahoma.
A career choice that certainly suited Jim Antosh.
Manufacturing the everyday products that people need and use, that's here forever. And it's fascinating because you can be involved in the whole process. It's not just one little part of it. Here, engineering involves the whole design of the overall machine, the whole process, the whole system. I think that more people should be considering manufacturing as a career because it's interesting and you get to do far more things than you would in some desk job.
Now, Roundhouse is one of 3 Shawnee manufacturing companies that can trace their economic legacy for over a century, and I think you may recognize all 3 of them. Now, if you'd like to learn more about these legacy companies, just head to okhorizon.com and look for our Centennial manufacturers under our value-added section.
Still to come on Oklahoma Horizon: politics, policy, and our democracy.
Where very few people vote.
But first, closing the skills gap.
Well, today students are entering a different workforce than their parents did. Jobs that once existed now don't, while others have taken their place. And that's created something called a skills gap, the difference between what we need and what we have when it comes to our workforce. Oklahoma Works is a governor's initiative to close that gap, and our Blaine Singletary attended this year's Oklahoma Works Summit.
Rob, the tone at the summit was optimistic, but there was also a sense of urgency. Some big changes need to be made in state education as well as business, but changes that some have already embraced. The focus of this gathering at the Cox Convention Center in Oklahoma City is on making students job ready by graduation and strengthening the economy in the process.
First and foremost, it's making a connection between, in effect, the providers of the education and the users of the education.
Richard Lane is an education consultant and keynote speaker at this summit.
And if we don't have common language, common expectations, education may prepare kids at a lower level or not in the right skill sets.
Educators and employers can sometimes seem to be speaking different languages, and that's where a lot of these disconnects come from. While schools have been good at teaching students reading, writing, and arithmetic, businesses need a little bit more than that.
It's not just they can do the basics, but they can use those skills to solve problems. They can find new information. They can redefine a problem, and so that they can get creative about different kinds of solutions.
Most employers aren't looking for robots who can perform repetitive tasks. In fact, taking a look at Oklahoma's top 10 highest-paying critical jobs, almost all of which are in the STEM fields, it's clear that now, more than ever, they need people who can use critical thinking on whatever situation is thrown at them. It's projected that thousands of jobs in these fields will be open, in addition to the ones already available, in the next decade. Governor Mary Fallin highlighted this growing need in our state.
As you can see, there are jobs available in Oklahoma that are high-wage jobs, that are good jobs, that are critical to our economic growth, and ones we must be prepared to have educated and skilled people to take those jobs in.
And the time to start preparing kids for these jobs isn't when they're getting ready for college. That time is now, while those kids are still infants. Again, Richard Lane.
We need to be asking the question, what are we doing for the youngest children to make sure that they're well prepared?
A knowledge gap today can become part of a growing skills gap tomorrow.
And so if we don't start early, trying to play catch up later is near impossible. We need to have high expectations. I truly believe they will rise to or lower to the expectations we set for them. So if we don't set the bar high, we shouldn't be surprised when kids don't rise to the level of the challenge ahead of them.
And from what many here today have said, that challenge comes from putting them in STEM classes that challenge them to think critically, something that Greg Winters is very familiar with.
It's the key ingredient. At Canadian Valley Technology Center, where I'm superintendent, we consider business and industry to be our primary customer. Our students are a product.
And if there's one thing about the future you can bank on, it's that all of this product will go to market.
At the end of the day, whether you're in higher ed, career tech, K-12 education, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, the one common thread that we have in education is that all of our students eventually go to work, and they go to work for business. And so it has to be a natural link.
But what we don't know is how this new generation of workers will meld with the current one.
This millennial generation, they approach their day-to-day life, they approach their career opportunities a whole lot differently than my generation. You have baby boomers still running industry, and they expect out of their employees the work ethic that we've always had. That is a tough bridge to get.
So that means a good helping of soft skills will need to be taught alongside the job training. It's not just about knowing how to do the job, but how to do it professionally.
Get up early, arrive early, stay late, do whatever it is you need to do. Stability in the job.
Students have a lot to learn, but so do our schools and businesses. And that's why all of these leaders in their respective fields are here to discuss exactly how to move forward with not only the success of Oklahoma's kids, but the success of Oklahoma's economy.
We need to be asking the question, what is it that we're doing as our children's first teacher to really start to say, how do we help our child? And in doing that, how do we partner with our teachers in our school to make sure they're on track to be successful?
There was a lot of ground covered at the Oklahoma Work Summit. We have links to the presentations and more from that day on our website, okhorizon.com.
And that is where we also have my conversation with Governor Fallin about the impact the skills gap is having on our economy, as well as the skills gap primer, all streaming under our value-added section.
Horizon is at your fingertips. Join us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube to catch the segments you may have missed and our latest new content as it happens.
Well, when we heard Jim Jones's take on global trade earlier in our show, that was just part of a broader interview I did with the former congressman and U.S. ambassador on issues I think are particularly pertinent as we head to the polls this November. Well, Ambassador Jones, you've been in and around government since the Johnson administration. How has government changed, and then how has that changed our role in the world?
Well, I think politics has changed. It's much meaner and more ideological than it was. The most important elections now are the primaries, where very few people vote. Average of 15% of the people vote. The people who vote in primaries are predominantly ideologically moved, either on the left of the political spectrum or on the far right. And once those people get nominated and then elected, generally in gerrymandered congressional districts, they are intimidated by any thought of moving away from that ideological purity. So as a result, you have a situation where Republicans and Democrats don't talk to each other. They actually can get chastised if they're seen fraternizing with the other members of the other party too much. And that does not make for getting bipartisan solutions to national problems. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a phase we're going through. Eventually, you'll have middle class or the middle part of the spectrum, people who are not either left or right, but just want to see government work properly. and who are voting less and less these days, eventually you're going to see them vote more and vote out everybody. And that's when I think things will change.
Now you can hear our entire conversation streaming on our website at okhorizon.com.
Want to see more stories like this? All our segments are streaming on our YouTube channel at Oklahoma Horizon TV.
With prices in the doldrums, Oklahoma farmers and ranchers are facing a tough go this year. Next time on Oklahoma Horizon, Oklahoma's Ag Outlook.
Part of our problem is we have expectations that are well beyond what we should have given the environment that we're in.
Farming and ranching with commodity prices lower than we've seen them in quite a while. On Oklahoma Show for the Heartland, Oklahoma Horizon. Well, that is going to wrap us up for today, but you can see more of any of our stories on our website at okhorizon.com. Follow us throughout the week on Twitter at OKHorizonTV, or like us on Facebook where we do post our weekly stories. Thanks for including us as part of your day. I'm Rob McClendon. Hope to see you back here next week.